Thank you very much. I see lawyers got a headshot there. We would forgive you, your mother. She's our mother. Mr. Kwaja, doctor, in your journey, you have done quite a bit. Your records are out there. They speak for themselves. We know that you have been a rapporteur as well. You have had engagements in communities. Can you speak to the role of peace in some of those communities that you had to wonder about the collaborations that those communities were having with security agencies? Let us not forget that there has been news around in the Northeast that spoke to communities cohabiting or taking in insurrectionists, and the security situations in those states have not been as great as they should be. Can you speak to the issue, sir?
Next week, I will be speaking at the National Defense College, and the theme I'm working on is on leadership in complex and fragile settings. And part of what I will be doing with that presentation is to x-ray Nigeria using that same discourse on the complexity you are confronted with. And I think our mommy just gave you a bit of what a leader goes through. May God help you when you have a fractured system with a morally bankrupt leader. Then you can imagine the kind of setting you are dealing with. And Nigeria is in that situation where the leadership itself is queried for the lack of agency, trust, and responsibility in dealing with the everyday challenges that citizens face. Then you have the citizens themselves that are also morally bankrupt when it comes to how they behave themselves. Growing up in our social studies classes, we were taught about agents of socialization, and the first agent is the family. When you have the family being a problematic institution, then the community and every other agency that has been mentioned will become problematic. Now, one of the biggest challenge we have when it comes to peace and security and justice is the place of the community. One of the books I read in the last 2 years that I've been using in the work I do with communities is a book titled How Communities Resist War. Communities resist war in several ways. Number one, communities accept the war. They accept the criminals because there's nothing they can do. They are helpless. And we have many of these communities scattered around Nigeria. The second is that communities themselves resist war by forming vanguards to protect themselves. And their conclusion is that the state is useless. The state cannot protect us. It is better we protect ourselves. We saw that with the civilian joint task force in Borno State, where young men and women came together to form the CJTF. And they withstood the force of the insurgents. And that was how the military incorporated or integrated the CJTF in its own daily patrol. The third way communities have engaged war or criminality or conflict is by providing the buffer that the criminals need. And we've seen that in the Northwest, where many community leaders were the ones serving as informants for the criminals. And in that context, this is what? Sabotage. They sabotage the state because it's either they don't believe in the state or they believe that the criminals have become conduit pipes for them to get money. And in that context, all the intelligence needed by the criminals come from the communities. In Hausa, it is said, idan kaga kadangare ya shiga dakin ka to akwai bango da ya sage, which means for criminals coming from Niger and Cameroon to understand the nature of our communities and are able to penetrate these communities, it means local informants have been playing huge role in that context. But in all this, one of the key area of work for us, or for me, is about working with communities to build their resilience against insecurity. That they have the capacity, regardless of what the state is doing, communities must develop the capacity to resist criminality. And we've seen that across many of our societies today, where criminals come, they think that the communities are helpless, but they get a shock of their lives where communities are able to defend themselves. And that's where we are today. Unfortunately, when communities begin to develop resilience capacities in a way that gives them the agency to be able to defend themselves in the way we are seeing across many communities, it puts a huge problem on the state. It means the state is losing its own power and control over these communities. May we not get there. DR Congo and many other countries where communities have been able to do that have suffered a lot, because if the state wants to reassert its power over these communities, it cannot. They are doing a lot. Now, my last comment is on elections. I was in Ondo recently. You have a population, a state where about 2 million people were registered to vote. But the governor won the election with 300,000 people, and he will be sworn in. It means over 1.5 million people did not vote. It tells a story of either we have a voter register that is not correct, or something is fundamentally wrong with the system that the citizens themselves believe coming out to vote is useless. Let them do what they want to do. But for how long will citizens allow the politicians to do whatever they want to do without challenging the system? If it is about good governance, then the unity of the common man or the common people in defining their future becomes a way to go. And somebody was saying, hey, we need to begin to look at the possibility of having an electoral college, that nobody should be sworn in where you have less than 30% of the population voting for a leader. You need to develop a means of ensuring that citizens come out to vote, because we should not allow the politicians to take advantage of that. We've seen members of House of Reps and Senate go to the Senate with just 50,000 votes in a population of almost 1 million people, 100,000 votes. So what happens is the same with security, where people are getting so distant from the public space, and criminals are doing what they want to do because they've seen either what people today call an ungovernable space, and that the ungovernable space today is not the bush, it's even the city, where the state is not present, where governance is not felt. And that was why in 2009, Obama reminded Africa that you need strong institutions, not strong men and women, if you want the continent to work. Thank you.
Thank you very much.